Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first in a series of webinars for the Bureau of Meteorology, or the BOM as we are known to most people. We hope that this is the beginning of a long-lasting tradition, and we thank you for joining us today. My name is Claire Mullen, and I'm delighted to be your moderator today. Angela is our producer and will moderate your questions. We have a high volume of attendees today, so we will address as many questions as we can. Otherwise, we will follow up after the webinar if needed. Before we start, may I ask for your attention as we cover off some housekeeping items. Our session today is on accounting for Australian water resources and will run for 60 minutes. Webinars work best when they are interactive, so please don't be shy. Send us your questions and share your insights with us, and we will get to these over 2 question and answer segments throughout the webinar. I'm sorry, everyone, we're having a few slide troubles. Just bear with us. You need to send us your questions via the chat function on the right of your screen. This webinar is being recorded, and the video link will be shared with you via email after the webinar. Cool. So for first-time webinar attendees, you can see on your screen now how you can join the conversation. Please note the questions box where you can send through any questions or feedback for the presenter. Please send your questions to us during the session and we will answer them if possible during the allotted breaks. The conversation isn't just confined to the webinar. We welcome interaction on LinkedIn as well. Please use the hashtag BOMWebinars in your posts. And finally, today's presenter. It is my great pleasure to welcome the Bureau's very own Janice Green, one of the industry's most respected hydrology experts, to the microphone. Janice has 30 years' experience in hydrology, hydraulics and water resource management, working in state and Commonwealth government agencies and the private sector. Janice is currently the team leader of the Water Accounting and Regulation section in the Bureau of Meteorology, with responsibility for the preparation of the National Water Account. Welcome, Janice.
Thanks, Claire.
Can you tell our listeners a bit more about what they can expect to learn today?
What I want to spend the next hour talking with you about is the Bureau of Meteorology's suite of water assessment products, which provide high-quality water information to assist in accounting for Australia's water resources. Each of us is aware of just how variable Australia's rainfall is. Looking back over our even recent lifetimes, we can remember how frequently we've lurched from drought to flood and back again. And as a consequence, Australia has one of the highest variable rainfalls in the world. A consequence of our highly variable rainfall and highly variable stream flow is that it's very difficult for water managers to effectively manage Australia's water resources. And to answer questions such as, how is the reliability of entitlements changing? Who's entitled to use water when and under what conditions? And as environmental flows become more and more important, how much water is allocated to the environment and when? And of course, how do we best manage our water resources during drought times? Why do we need water information? We need access to consistent, high-quality water information in order to inform water resource plans and policy, to facilitate water market efficiency by providing an overview of supply and demand conditions, by providing background materials for communication, research and education, and more to inform public debate as members of the public want to be involved in how our water resources are being managed. So what's the Bureau of Meteorology's role? Our role is to build on the extensive data networks and data bases collected by state and territory water managers in order to be able to provide water data for anywhere in Australia, which can then be used for decision-making by governments and by industry. The Bureau's role then is also to analyse and interpret the water information, and also to integrate this information with the information the Bureau already holds and continues to collect about weather and climate. And as a result of this, we're able to provide online products to help governments, water managers and irrigators better manage water resources under the very variable rainfall and streamflow conditions that we experience here in Australia. The URL at the bottom of the page is where you go to the landing page for our water products. But I just want to talk about some of the specific products which we can use for accounting for Australia's water resources. But before I do that, the kind of information we need it across different spatial scales. For some purposes, we need to know information on a national level, and so our information needs to be provided to us nationally. However, in some instances, we want to do a deep dive into specific regions, such as the Murray-Darling Basin. Other times, we want to know information on the drainage division, so for example, the Melbourne Drainage Division. And other times, we want information at specific locations or at specific river reaches. But it's not just spatial diversity that we need information on, we also need it across different time scales. In terms of emergency management, we need to have our information on an hourly basis. If we're looking at water allocations or water restrictions, the timescale we're interested in is both weeks and months. But if we're doing planning for supply augmentation for major capital cities, the information we need needs to be on a decadal basis. The suite of products that the Bureau provides covers all these spatial scales and also the time scales. We have 4 main products. We have Water in Australia, and this is the product which provides a national report. It looks at the water resources across Australia as a whole. We also have the National Water Account, which does a deep dive into 11 nationally significant water resource management regions. And then we have regional water information, which provides the spatial information down to a river region. And monthly water update, which each month provides a snapshot of rainfall, stream flow and salinity for the previous month relative to the average conditions. Now I'm just going to stop here and take a quick poll to find out which of these products that I've just mentioned that you've used. So you'll see on your screen some tick boxes. If you could answer the ones to question 1, and please, if you haven't used any of them, please don't feel embarrassed to tick E, because part of the reason for having this webinar is to be able to know how many people haven't been using our products and to give you a bit more information on how you can use them.
Absolutely. So we'll leave that poll open for another moment or two to allow everyone plenty of time to get their answer choices through. So answer choices there, once again, Water in Australia, National Water Account, Regional Water Information, Monthly Water Update, or perhaps none of these. And as Janice points out, there is no shame in that. We'd love your honest feedback and we'll adapt the presentation accordingly. How do you think we're going to go in this poll, Janice? Any thoughts?
I think we'll be pretty evenly spread. We conducted a survey at the end of last year into people who are using our products, and what we find is that there's some people who are using all of them, some who are using just one, and some who haven't had the opportunity to use any.
Okay, well, all right. So we can see that about 65 or 66% of you have now completed the poll. Thank you. There's still opportunity, one more moment, and we'll close that off.
Isn't it great to see that we've got 170 people online with us today?
Absolutely.
That's fantastic for us in our first webinar, so we'll just give them a few more seconds.
All righty. Well, 73% of you have completed that, so I might just close that off if we're all okay with that. Okay, and let's have a look at those poll results. If we can get those poll results up onto the screen. We've got them there.
It's interesting finding it's quite an even spread. So there's a few people who haven't seen these products before, probably the majority, which is great that you've tuned into our webinar so you can learn all about them. And then otherwise it's the regional water information suite that was the most popular. Is that what you were expecting, Janice?
Yes, it was, because regional water information does provide the very site-specific information that you need to use on a day-to-day basis. What I might do is just give you a high-level overview of each of the 4 products, just to give you a little bit of information, just to whet your appetite so that after the webinar you can go and have an explore. The first one I'll start with is Water in Australia. And with each of these products, I'll have the URL up on the slide, and also at the end of the webinar, I have a slide which contains all the URLs. Water in Australia, as you remember, it's a high-level national product. It summarises the water situation across the whole of Australia for the previous financial year. It takes information from a wide range of sources, a lot of information from the states and territories, and information from internally in the water program, from modelling, from the National Water Account. And it provides a high level of information across Australia in the context of climatic conditions and also in terms of long-term trends and how the information for the previous financial year compares. So if we have a look at rainfall, which enables us to look at the spatial variability, you can see that for the 2015-16 financial year, the mean rainfall for Australia was about 464 millimetres, which is pretty close to the long-term average. However, that average value needs to be broken down into the spatial distribution, and what we can see from the map is that within the interior of Australia, rainfall was above average or average, but around the coast, and in particular if you look at Victoria, for those who are calling in from Melbourne, rainfall was very much below average. Similarly, for the 15-16 year, we can see that because of the low rainfalls, the majority of the stream gauges that we were looking at were lower than average, and you can see that by the number of the circles which are either white, pink, or the dark red, which represents that the stream flow there was the lowest record since 1975. Obviously, there are a few places that we can see where there are the blue dots, which shows it was very much above average, but on the whole, stream flow across Australia was dominated by lower than average stream flow. If we look at the effect this has on the storages, if we look at the figure on the top of the screen, that's what the urban storages were at the end of June 2015. And we can see by comparing that to the figure at the bottom that over the 12 months to the 30th of June 2016, the storages had gradually been drawing down. So looking at the bar across the bottom with the different colours, we're moving from the very dark blue at the far right along that spectrum towards the red. And in particular, you can see that for Perth, it's gone from the orange in 2015 to the red in 2016. Some other information that's provided is groundwater. And Water in Australia provides information for 3 levels of aquifers, the upper, middle and lower aquifers. And it shows not just the water levels for the end of the financial year, but because the response of groundwater is a lot longer over time, it shows the trends over the past 20 years. And what we can see from these maps here is that for 2015-16, groundwater levels were average to below average, but they show the declining trend which has been predominant since 2011. If we now move from the national view and move more to the deep dive into specific regions, we need to look at the National Water Account. National Water Account combines the science of hydrology with the rigour of financial reporting, and by doing that, it provides a detailed insight into water resources, enabling the disclosure of the amount of water available, the amount of water that was allocated, and who was accessing it for use in terms of which sectors of water use were using that information. National Water Account is produced for 11 nationally significant regions, which covers 80% of Australia's population, 70% to 80% of Australia's water use, depending on the water use in a particular financial year, 70% of Australia's urban supply, almost all the trading that takes place, and most of the horticultural growing areas. That's a lot of information, and we provide the National Water Account in 3 releases. Our first release in December is a northern release, and that covers the Northern Australia releases of the Ord, Daly, Burdekin, and next year the Fitzroy region. We then do the urban regions of Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Canberra, Sydney, and South East Queensland, and finally the Murray-Darling Basin region. And what this enables us to do is to provide information even in the National Water Account at different levels. So we have the 11 separate region accounts which provides these detailed findings for each of the 11 regions. And I'm pleased to announce that the third release for the 2016 National Water Account for the Murray-Darling Basin region was released today.
Hooray! Great news.
And just to give you a sneak preview of what we found for the 2016-17 financial year for the Murray-Darling Basin was that there was heavy rainfall during winter and spring, and this led to very high stream flows. And the impact of this was that storage volumes in the Murray-Darling Basin increased for the first time since 2012. This enabled total water use to increase by more than 20% from the previous year in 2015-16. And it also meant that water used for environmental purposes made up 18% of the total water diverted. As I said, once you've finished listening to this webinar, go and have a look at our Murray-Darling Basin webinar, Murray-Darling Basin account, and there's also a video if you don't feel like reading the account. In addition to the accounts for each individual region, we also group our accounts so that we can undertake comparisons between geographically similar regions. So, for example, Northern Australia with Ord, Daly and Burdekin, and next year the Fitzroy, and also thematically. So we can compare findings between the different urban accounts to see how the water resources, water availability compares between different cities. And one of the really great things about the National Water Account is the 2016-17 National Water Account is our 8th account. And that means that we now have a bank of account which provides a picture of how water has been used and managed over the past 8 years. And each successive account that we release, so next year when we release the 2017-18 account, it puts more money in the bank. And the value of this is we now have a suite of accounts which will, by helping us understand the past, will help us to plan for the future. Now that's been a pretty quick overview of the first 2 of our water assessment suites and the Water in Australia and National Water Account. So we might just take a pause now in case you have any questions that you'd like to ask.
Thanks, Janice. That's awesome. We've had a couple of questions. We've had one from Jane. She asks, how do I find out more about what constitutes a lower, middle and upper aquifer?
Thanks, Jane. That's a really great question. If you go to the Bureau of Meteorology's water information page, and that's the link I provided in one of the earlier slides, there's information on our groundwater, and that will give you a lot of information on the information we collect and also what we classify as being upper, middle and lower aquifers.
Thank you. And we also have a question from Rebecca. She's asking, is there any coverage of Tasmania?
No, I'm very sorry. I would really love to have an account for Tasmania in the National Water Account, but Water in Australia and regional water information, which I'll talk about shortly, definitely do cover Tasmania.
Fantastic. Thank you, Janice. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick reminder, please do communicate with us in the chat. We welcome your questions and we'll take these periodically throughout the webinar. It's a great opportunity to make the most of one of Australia's leading experts in this area, so please don't be shy. Pick her brain on all things water account management, so now's your opportunity. Rachel, has a question there.
Oh, she does too. Do we have any capacity to provide early warning of the onset of extreme drought conditions?
We do. As you're aware, the Bureau produces indicators, climatic indicators, such as the Indian Ocean dipole, the sea surface temperature information. And by using the Bureau's climate products, by using the Bureau's water products such as the soil moisture conditions, the stream flow, the level of the volume which are in storages, that provides us with information which indicates when we're looking at moving into not only a climatic drought, but when we're moving into a hydrologic drought, so that we know that our water resources are declining and that we're moving into extreme drought conditions. So the short answer is yes, you can. We do have all that information available within the Bureau's products as a whole.
Thanks, Janice. We'll probably take one more question. We've also got our Brains Trust Widgie working very rapidly in the background, so anything that we don't address with you verbally, Widgie will try and send you a message as we go. So our last question for now is from Ryan. He's wondering about coverage in the southeast of South Australia for surface water.
We do have, obviously, as you saw with the National Water Account, we have an Adelaide region account. For surface water, regional water information and also monthly water update, which I'll talk about in the next couple of minutes, looks at those areas. We also have another water product, which is Water Data Online, which publishes and makes readily available streamflow data for over 3,500 streamflow gauging stations around Australia. So once again, if you go to the general water information webpage on the Bureau's website, you'll see the link to Water Data Online.
Thanks, Janice. That's awesome. Now, would you like to go on and tell us all about regional water information?
Thanks, Claire. Regional water information is the third of our four suite of water assessment products, and there again is the URL for regional water information. Regional water information provides a suite of information. It has 8 topics or data types, so it has stream flow, it has rainfall, it has evapotranspiration. It also provides different types of analyses of this information. So you can find out, as you can see on the screen, we can find out what the average stream flow was for a range of locations across Australia. We can also look at it at a national park basis or on a state basis, or for over 200 river regions. At the moment, we have 4 years of information available within regional water information, but obviously with each successive year, that amount of information is going to be growing. Within the regional water information webpage, we have a number of tabs at the top of the page, and this provides us information such as how the stream flow compares to the long-term average decile ranges. It also shows information such as the distribution of gauges based on decile rankings. So the figure in the top right-hand corner shows for the past 20 years what percentage of streamflow gauges across Australia was showing the lowest since 1975, the highest since 1975, and how much was very much below average. If you look at the summary in the bottom left-hand corner, that provides a summary of the change over the year, so for the financial year, and it gives us information as to the different decile categories for rainfall. So if we look at that top row, we can see that for most of the first part of 2016-17, rainfall was very much above average or average, but as we moved into May and June, rainfall fell and it was below average or very much below average. And moving down each of those rows, we have information on evapotranspiration, soil moisture, runoff, stream flow, and the rural and urban storage volumes. And the final tile on the bottom right-hand corner shows the statistics for stream flow for 2016-17. It shows us how many sites and what percentage were the lowest on record since 1975. And we can see that during the past financial year, the number of sites that were below the lowest record since 1975 was 4. And we just have this range of statistics here. And this information is provided for each of the 8 categories of data that are available for different regions for different time periods. The fourth product we have is Monthly Water Update. Monthly Water Update provides information on the drainage divisions, and it provides it on a monthly basis. It's released within the first couple of weeks of each month. And for each of the drainage division, it provides a summary of what's happened in the immediate past month. The format of the product is that it provides a summary and some commentary on what the status in the region was, and what we're looking at here is the Murray-Darling Basin for April 2018. And then it does a deeper dive into the categories of rainfall, stream flow salinity, and water storages. So we can see that April this year rainfall was very much below average for the majority of the Murray-Darling Basin, particularly in the southern basin. As a consequence, stream flow was average or below average, and this had an impact on stream flow salinity, with a number of sites being measured as being brackish or moderately saline. And then also it shows how the water storages, and we can see the big red dot for the Menindee Lakes storages. And for each of these 4 categories of information, it also provides statistics. So we have there the stream flow statistics, which show that 30 sites showed high quality water, but for 2 sites, the stream flow salinity was considered to be saline. I might just take a quick pause here again, seeing as I've now given you a lot of information about the 4 products, and see whether there are any other questions.
And I think you're burnt a sip of water yourself. A couple of questions here, one from David.
Thanks, Ange. David's asking, can we access the unit level data or just summary statistics and graphs, for example, for the regional water information?
We definitely can for the for the monthly water update. There's downloads. The other thing too is there's a lot of information that goes into all of these water assessment products, some of which can be downloaded. But the other information, if you want the actual data, each of these products' websites has a feedback or a help email link. If you send an email requesting data for specific areas or specific types of information, we can provide that to you.
Thank you. Sabrina sent a bit of a curly question to us. She's asking, how do we take climate change into this equation when estimating drought?
Oh, that is a curly one, Claire. And it's not one which I think I can answer in a 1-hour webinar. What we're doing with the water information products is we're providing information on the past water resource conditions integrated with the climatic conditions. That allows us to look at trends over a period of years. For the monthly water account, that's for the past 8 years. For water information, it's for the past 20 years. And by analysing these data in conjunction with the climate change modelling that's being undertaken, both in Australia and internationally, we are able to see whether there are trends, but it's not an easy question to answer.
It's Oh. We have another question from Rimon. Rimon's asking, is there any API for the available data sets? I don't know what
that's
an API
a very
is.
good question.
Oh, good.
And the answer is we're working on it. We do realise that while we can download a lot of our information either directly from the website, if you're a registered user, you can get a larger tranche of data. There are a lot of people who are interested in being able to access the data via the API, via an API.
For anyone who's unfamiliar with the acronym.
It's an application programmable interface.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So it's a case of watch this space because we are working on providing our information via APIs.
We are learning a lot today. That's all our questions for now, and we have another quick poll to go through before we continue with your presentation. Are we good for the poll, Ange?
Yes, we are.
All right.
Okay, except that's all right. What we'll get our audience to do, and the question, by the way, is which sector do you work in? So we'd like to learn a little bit more about you. So we'll get you to type your answers into the chat, and our answer choices are A for agriculture, B for government, C for water resource management. Sorry, what?
Can we go to the next slide? Oh, there it is.
There we go. That's all right. Well, the fourth answer choice is urban utilities, or perhaps none of these. That's, I suppose, we might attract someone completely outside of who we were expecting. So that's great. And again, I don't know what are we expecting to see more of here, Janice? Any thoughts?
No, I'm as interested as you are.
Excellent. We've got a bit of a mix. We've got quite a few people from government, actually. Thank you for joining us, government folks. Answer choices again, A for agriculture, B for government, C for water resource management, or D for urban utilities, or perhaps E for none of these. Industry, mining. We've got someone from mining joining us. That's great. None of the above. Environmental consultant, thank you, Dan. Actually, we've got quite a few responses coming through from government, so I guess that's maybe what we expected to see a little bit more of. Actually, quite a few from mining. That's interesting.
Well, that's good because one of the case studies I want to do in the next sector deals with how water accounting can be used in the mining sector.
Oh, that's terrific. And we do have a couple of audience joining us from the agriculture sector as well. So, but definitely a bit of a government-dominated audience and some miners there. So thank you so much. Shall we move on?
Thanks, and thanks for your answers. What I want to do now is I've talked about the 4 products that the Bureau produces. I now want to talk about how you can use the information, both the information that you see when you go to the products on the web page, but also by accessing the information that goes into producing their products. The first one is if an urban utility, and we do have quite a few people from urban utilities listening in today, one of the purposes that you can put the National Water Account and the information it contains, not only in the most recent National Water Account, but also in that bank of National Water Accounts that we have, is that by looking at the climate drivers, so what the rainfall was, what the storage response was, we can then have a look at how the source of where water has been taken to supply urban water supplies and demands it's been coming from. And the graph in the bottom right of the screen compares for Adelaide, Canberra, Melbourne, Perth, Southeast Queensland and Sydney, where over the past 6 years they mainly got their water from. So, for example, if you look at Canberra, where I'm from, water supply for Canberra comes from surface water supplies. But if you compare that to Perth, you can see that over the past 6 years, Perth has been managing its water resources so that last financial year, 50% there was an almost even split between groundwater being used to supply Perth and desalination. And if you have a look at Melbourne, you can see the years when, at the beginning of that 6-year period, where water was supplied from surface water, and then with the darker blue or the teal colour, the dependence on inter-region transfers from Thomson Dam. But interestingly enough, we also see for Melbourne that for the 2016-17 year, water was also supplied from Wonthaggi desal plant. And using this information from across Australia and across the period of years, you can start making comparisons between the way in which water resources was managed and operated. If we move now to the type of information you can find on a regional scale, and say, for example, an agricultural producer and investor in Northern Australia wanted to look at what would be the benefits or disbenefits of investing in Northern Australia, you can take the information from the Ord and Daly region accounts. You can look at how much water is available to be allocated for individual users, for irrigation schemes and for the urban system, and how much was actually being taken by each of those sectors. And then you can look at the storage reliability. So the figure on the bottom right shows the storage volume in the Ord River, which, as we realise, is largely very much dominated by Argyle Dam. And what we can see is that in 2011 and 2017, Argyle Dam, the Ord River storages were full and spilling, but we've had periods over this period where they have been drawn down, and most recently in 2016, where the Ord Dam was down to 74%.
Thanks, Janice. Just quickly, David's asking, where is recycled water?
Recycled water is included, but is a very small component of water supply in any of the urban centres. But what I will do in a further case study, David, is actually show how you can use the information that's provided behind the National Water Account to look at what recycled water is available for use.
Thank you. And we've just had a quick comment from Mark, who's saying the regional scale slide, very useful for my sector, which is wine. Is there an easy step-by-step guide? I can't quite see how to do that.
Can I suggest that there's an email address that if Mark wants to send an email to waterinfo@bom.gov.au, we'd be able to provide the advice on how to access that information.
Thank you. We're getting heaps of questions, but let me let you continue with your case studies, and then we'll do a few more at the end. Thank you.
Okay. This is one of my favourites. It's for tour operators, and as you know, there's a lot of interest when Lake Eyre fills, and one of the things that tour operators like to do is to fly people over Lake Eyre to see it in flood, to see the vegetation, in particular the bird life that comes when we do have water in Lake Eyre. This shows how the monthly water update can be used to identify when we do have very much above average flows at Birdsville. And what we're seeing here is the rainfall, actually for March of this year, which then resulted in having very much above average stream flows at the Birdsville gauge and resulting in flooding in Lake Eyre. If we look at the water management area scale, and this is one of the areas where at the moment we only produce a National Water Account for the Murray-Darling Basin as a whole, but the information that goes into the Murray-Darling Basin region account is actually aggregated up from the different valleys or within the Murray-Darling Basin. And if on a valley scale, environmental water managers are wanting to look at how much water is available for environmental flows or how much water was actually taken as environmental flows, the information is available as part of the back end, but available to users to provide this information on a particular river basin. This one, I think, answers a question that was earlier. Here we have for 2015-16, and this is a plot of sea surface temperature, which shows that for the period from July 2015 to June to July 2016, we had high sea surface temperatures. That resulted in a strong El Nino signal across many parts of Australia, and in particular in Melbourne. And what we see here is that as a consequence of that, there was a decrease in rainfall across the Melbourne region, which consequently resulted in below average stream flows, which meant that for the Melbourne region, there was an increase of water that needed to be supplied from Thomson Reservoir, and also an increase of groundwater that was extracted by about 30%. And what this information can be used for is, in the future, both longer term and near future, if the Bureau starts reporting these increases in sea surface temperature, we can look back at to similar events where, for example, in 2015-16, where we had this situation, we can compare with how we managed the water resources during those previous events, and this can be used to inform how we manage our water resources during future El Nino events. In terms of urban utilities, once again, we aggregate up a lot of the information to produce our national water accounts for individual regions, but the information we have there can be disaggregated, if you like, to provide us with an assessment of water loss within urban utilities. Here we have a figure of the 4 main water suppliers for Melbourne, the losses they experienced during the 16-17 financial year, and also at the bottom, once again, building on that bank of water accounts that we have, we can see what the water loss, the trend of the water loss from 2010-11 to 2016-17. And it's quite pleasing to see that the water loss most recently has been declining. And this comes back to the question that was asked about recycled water. Once again, by drilling down into the information that's provided for the National Water Account on an individual treatment plant, it allows us to identify how much water is being discharged from wastewater treatment plants, and this allows us to identify opportunities for using recycled water to supply urban water supply. And here we can see the information provided for Adelaide region. And we had, Anjali said we had quite a few people from the mining sector.
Yes, we did.
This is a use that we most recently have done as a trial for the mining sector, for a particular mine. But for a mine manager, you can use the water accounting principles, general water accounting principles, to investigate and identify where water is not being used efficiently in operations. So just as we do a water account on a big scale for regions, the 11 regions across Australia, we can also drill down to individual mine sites and use the same principles to identify the accounting, where the inflows and the outflows are occurring within a mine, and use that to identify where we're experiencing losses or where water's not being used most efficiently. We've got any other questions? So I just might pause now before I do a wrap-up.
Thanks, Janice. Those case studies were excellent. We do have a few questions. We've got one from Rebecca. She's asking what types of storages are incorporated in the storage assessments, i.e. is it only strategic storages?
No, it's every storage above a gigalitre. And for some of the National Water Account regions, it's also smaller ones.
All right, we've also had a question from Mike South. I'll read it to you. It's a little bit long. Here's a bit of information and a question. The accuracy of the reporting must depend on the accuracy and appropriateness of the data methodology and any associated modelling assumptions. Do you indicate anywhere the accuracy of the report within fiducial limits?
fiducial limits, but what we do is at the end of each account, we do provide information on where the information for each of the steps within the water accounting statements is found, and whether it's something that was measured, for example, stream flow or rainfall, whether it's been modelled using the Bureau's Australian Water Resources Assessment Model, and we provide a qualitative assessment of the accuracy of that information.
Thank you.
We also have at the end of each account, we have an unaccounted for difference, which is an indicator of the uncertainty in terms of the information going into the account.
Well, that was a great question from Mike. Thanks, Mike, for engaging with us.
We have one last question that we can answer for now from Joseph. Is there similar data on water source for regional towns to that shown for groundwater or surface water or desal split for capital cities?
If you go to the Bureau's Water Information webpage, we do provide information on what we call climate resilient water sources, and there's a climate resilient link on our Water Information webpage, and that includes regional cities. Our groundwater information pages provide information on for across the whole of Australia. And what was the third type of information?
Desal split for capital cities. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and there's also the Urban National Performance Report, which provides a lot of information on that. So I suggest, Joseph, that if you go to the Water Information webpage and have a look at the different products we do have, I think you'll find the information that you're looking for.
All right, I'm just going to squeeze one more in from Ian. The mining example you just gave, this was developed on an individual request?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, one more from Rimon. Is there any premium data available to purchase that includes back-end data in more detail?
We're not really big on selling data. We are happy to make the data freely available. As I said, there's information which you can download from many of the products. We do, for other products, have registered users who have access to a lot more information. But once again, if you contact us about the information you're interested in and the purpose you need it for, we'll get back to you and see how we can best help you.
And that was that email that you told us before?
Yes.
Which was waterinfo@bom.gov.au. Also, we still have our Brains Trust Widgie online, who's typing as fast as he can if you have any other questions in the next 10 minutes. Otherwise, try emailing us after the webinar. Janice, I think we're up to the summary now. Thank you. If you can go on.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining me today. I realise that I've presented quite a lot of information, but I've hoped I've just served to pique your interest as to what the Bureau of Meteorology's water information products can provide. So, just to summarise, Australia, as we're all aware, Australia's highly variable stream flow and rainfall makes it really difficult to manage our water resources. And in order to manage our water resources most effectively and efficiently, we need high quality, consistent water information at different spatial and time scales. And the Bureau of Meteorology provides a suite of online products which provides this information for both a national and a regional and a site basis. And these are Water in Australia, National Water Account, Regional Water Information and Monthly Water Update. This is where you can access each of these 4 products. Each of these web pages also has feedback links. So, for example, if you have a query specifically about National Water Account, there's a National Water Account email address for you to ask a question or to provide some feedback. And a lot of the information, as we've discussed, is available for download from the web pages.
Thank you, Janice. That's been awesome. That actually brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you, Janice, for sharing your insights with us today. To our audience, thank you for tuning in and being part of the first BOM-hosted webinar. If you would like to continue the conversation, please use the hashtag BOMWebinars in your LinkedIn posts. It was our pleasure bringing it to you today, and we hope that you'll join us again next time. And speaking of next time, our next webinar is next Wednesday, the 13th of June, when we have Paul and Karen telling us about water forecasting. So please join us for this webinar. You'll need to register with us. We also have 2 more webinars in June after that. And if you're unable to attend at these times, as long as you register, we can send you an email with the recording after the webinar. So as mentioned, the session has been recorded and we'll have the video ready for you on demand, viewing pleasure in the next few days. So finally, but most importantly, we want your feedback. It is our aim to bring you the highest possible quality webinars, but we can't do that unless you share our experiences, your experiences with us. Once we close this webinar, a short survey will pop up on your screen, and we'd be very grateful if you could complete that anonymously for us. So once again, thank you to everyone in the room for helping us with our first webinar.
And thank you.
Particularly our speaker Janice, our moderator Ange, and our Brains Trust Widgie.
Thank you.
We appreciate all your help, and we look forward to hearing from you possibly and speaking with you at our next webinar. So thank you and goodbye.